Alrighty, in Unit 9, Lesson 13, we're just going to determine when we multiply and when we divide, even with fractions, and then doing some estimation to determine what we're going to do. SAB page 397 to 400. So we're just going to look at these situations and decide, do we multiply or do we divide? So if a turtle crawls 3 1/3 yards in an hour, how far will it crawl in 2 hours? Well, you're going to multiply, okay, because you're going to take 3 1/3 and multiply it by 2. Okay, so you're basically doubling each of those. 3 times 2 is 6. I'm just doing some mental math here. 1/3 times 2, so 2/3 yards. Okay. How far will the turtle crawl in 3/4 of an hour? Okay, so again, this would be multiplication. You're going to take 3/4 of an hour and multiply that by 3 1/3. And again, if it's easier to turn that into an improper fraction, go ahead and do so. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So you'd have 10/3 times 3/4, okay, which is 10/4, because I canceled these out, 1. Okay, and then simplify, so 2.5 yards. Okay. IDS. Emily has 3/5 of a ton of sand. She's going to move it with a wheelbarrow. Her wheelbarrow holds 1/10 of a ton. How many trips? You have to divide. You're going to divide 3/5 divided by 1/10. Okay. Remember, you can cross multiply or you can flip it. I'm going to cross multiply this time. 3 times 10 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5. 30 divided by 5 then is 6 trips. Okay. Tawana runs 2 7/10 miles every day. She stops every 9/10 of a mile to rest. How many stops does she make? So again, you're going to divide the 2 7/10 miles by 9/10. Again, I would make this an improper fraction first. 2 times 10 is 20, so 27 plus 7, 27/10, and then divide that by 9/10. Okay, and this time I'm going to flip it. So 27/10 times 10/9. Okay, cross these out. 1, 1. 27/9. Okay. And you could simplify that, right? You guys know that, which is 3. Stop. Roberto has a recipe that calls for 3/4 of a cup of flour. He wants to use half of the recipe. How much flour will he need? This is actually a multiplication. I know that seems counterintuitive because he's going to do half the recipe, but what you're going to do is you're going to take 3/4 and multiply it by half because you want to end up with a smaller fraction. So he's going to use 3/8 of a cup. Okay. A picnic jug holds 5/8 of a gallon of lemonade. Each paper cup also holds 1/12 of a gallon. How many cups? So we're going to take that whole 5/8 and we're going to divide it by 1/12 because that's what the cups hold. Cross multiply or flip it, whatever you want to do. I'm going to flip it again. 8 times 12 over 1 because I can simplify here. 2 goes into 8 4 times. 2 goes into 12 6 times. Oh, I can do it again. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now I get 15 over 2, which is 7.5 cups. Okay. On Whitegate Chicken Farm, 7/8 of the eggs usually hatch. This year, only 2/3 as many eggs hatch. So we're multiplying because we want to get a smaller number. 7/8 times 2/3. Multiply straight across. 14. 8 times 3. 24. And then simplify, which is 7/12 eggs. Okay. All right, so fraction or whole numbers. Let me do some erasing of old junk that looks like it's left over here. A times B equals C. Will C be greater or less than? It's going to be greater. Because when you multiply whole numbers, you end up with a larger whole number. A times a fraction. So if we take a whole number and multiply it by a fraction, we're going to end up with a smaller number because that C is just a piece of the whole. Okay? What about with division? When we take a whole number and we divide it, we're going to end up with a smaller number, right? If you take a whole number and you divide it by a whole number, you're going to end up with a smaller piece, right? C is just a part of A. Okay? When we divide by a fraction, we're going to end up with a larger number, greater, right? Because dividing is the same as multiplying and flipping it, right? And we're going to end up with a bigger number there. Okay, so which ones have greater numbers when we multiply or divide? Multiply, okay, there, and divide when it's fractions. All right. So here are just a few more practice problems for you guys. Let's talk through these really quickly. Lucy spends 4 hours a week babysitting. Her sister Lily spends 7/8 as much time babysitting. Does Lily babysit for less or more than 4 hours? Well, it's less, and you would multiply. 4 times 7/8, right? And when you multiply 4 times 7/8, it's like putting this over 1, multiply straight across, okay? And then simplify. 4 times 7 is 28 eighths. Simplify that down to 3.5 hours, okay? Yoshi has a rope that is 30 feet long. He has to cut it into pieces that are 5/8. Will he get more or fewer? Well, he's going to get more pieces, right? If you take this whole and you're cutting it up into individual pieces, you're going to get more. You're going to divide. So we're going to take 30 divided by 5/6. Remember, that's like putting this over 1, and then go ahead and flip it. 30 over 1 times 6/5. And then I can simplify. 30 divided by 5, right, is what I'm doing here, is 6. So then I've got 6 times 6, which is 36 pieces. Okay. Carlos can throw a ball 14 yards. His friend Raul can throw it 3/7 of that distance. Is Raul's throw longer or shorter than 14 yards? Well, it's going to be shorter. And you're going to multiply 14 times 3/7. Remember, you can put that 14 over 1. I'm going to simplify 2 and 1. So I get 6 yards. Okay. An apple orchard covers 12 acres. There's a watering spout every 1/4 of an acre. Are there fewer or more than 12 watering spouts? More. Okay. Because you're going to divide. You're going to take 12 and divide it up into fourths. How many fourths are there in 12 is what we're saying. So again, you can look at it like 1 here. 4 goes to 1, 4 into 3. Oops. I'm sorry, guys. I just totally botched that one. Let me erase this and do this part again. All right, you're probably going, wait a minute. What are you doing? 12, okay? And we're going to divide that by 1/4. Okay, we need to cross multiply instead. 12 over 1 times 4 over 1. Okay, 12 times 4 is 48. Gosh, that was much simpler than what I was trying to do. Spouts. Okay. As your little extension activity, I want you guys to do this. You've just won a quick prize in the Thinking Quick quiz. I want you to suppose that these are the statements. I want you to fill this in, and this is what you will discuss when you guys come back to class tomorrow.